We're at 9:33, so we'll go ahead and call the meeting to order. If you didn't hear the prompt, the meeting is being recorded. So just wanted to make sure everyone's aware of that. You know, it's useful for our minutes purposes and also for getting up on our website, YouTube channel, and the SEDA COG website afterwards. So appreciate you all being here. We'll call to order the January 20th, 2023 SEDA COG MPO meeting. We have a few folks in the room. We'll do introductions to them. With the folks joining online, we probably won't take the time to kind of step over, you know, that process of having everybody introduce themselves online, all the callers and those joining us via Ring Central. But we will do in the room here and do a couple announcements up front, a little bit of housekeeping. But I wanted to mention we have Ginny and Jack here in the room, so you can see our new staff members in person, but we were very pleased to welcome 2 new staff members at SEDA COG that will support the MPO and our transportation planning efforts. Back in December, Bryce Buck had joined us as a GIS program analyst, a Penn State grad, and brings a lot of great technology and skills and contributions to our program in the short amount of time that he's been here. So we're glad to have Bryce join us and be a part of our team. And then Michelle Ballou had joined us in the early part of this year in January as a new program assistant. So we're very pleased to have her and her experience and knowledge brought to the table and to support our efforts as well. And my name is Steve Herman, for those of you that haven't been playing along in the past at the MPO process or our meetings. So been the program director since last March and a part of the transportation planning team since 2003. So I'm glad to have you all participate here today for our meeting. And so we'll just kind of go around. Michelle, if there's anything additional you want to share about yourself or to get acclimated to the group, feel free to do so.
Okay. My name is Michelle Ballou. I started on January 3rd. I have a construction background. I worked for a large construction company in Wyomissing, and also as a project manager for Fabtex. That was in Danville. It was commercial window coverings. We handle the installation, measure all that fun stuff. So I'm very happy to be here. I'm happy to meet everybody and grateful for the opportunity.
Nice to meet you.
Right.
I think Steve covered a lot of it, but my name is Bryce Buck. I started last December, so about a month ago now. Graduated from Penn State, background in GIS mapping and landscape ecology. Spent the last 2 years at Schuylkill County doing about the same job. So really happy to be here and meet you guys.
That's great. Ginny, please.
Ginny Figglescott from Dewberry Engineering.
Jack Kittle, Berwick Public Works.
Kristen McLaughlin from SEDA COG MPO.
Great. Thank you for everyone in the room. And if anybody online is a new guest and you want to share anything about yourself, feel free to do so. But we can say your names, and we've renamed some of the phone callers, and so we'll have that preserved for the minutes. But is there anybody else joining us online that wants to do any introduction?
Good morning, everyone. My name is Matt Wise. I'm the district director for Senator Gene Yaw. And I'm out of the Williamsport office. I started with him at the beginning of December, so I'm happy to be here with everyone.
Great. Thank you, Matt. Appreciate it.
Jeff Eisman, Pennsylvania Silk and PA Transportation Alliance. We focus on transportation issues statewide for people with disabilities, and I'm also on the Cat and Rabbit, advisory group. I think it's been renamed South Central Transit Authority. I know Steve gets on those calls. Thanks.
Great. Thank you, Jeff. And we're pleased to have Robert Clapp as kind of a new person joining the forums and the discussion here, and he's from the Center for Independent Living as well. Anyone other that is new, that's maybe not on the agenda, that wants to introduce themselves? Okay, hearing none, we appreciate y'all being with us today. We have a some of our normal business and action items, and we have a guest presentation we're excited about from Rabbit Transit to give us an update on their stop hopper micro transit service within the region. So our first kind of order of business after calling order introductions is the public forum. So we want to give that opportunity, that outlet. If there's an item not on the agenda that anyone wants to raise, feel free to do that here in the next 30 seconds.
Good morning, Steve. This is David Juba from Rabbit Transit, and I just wanted to confirm, apologies, I sent you a last minute email. I did also bring Beth Needham and Brian Noon from our organization to talk about the intercity bus program and the same-day shared ride per your request. I know it's not on the agenda, so I just wanted to clarify.
Great. Yeah, thanks for this update. That I think was an inquiry made from Jeff at our last meeting, Eisman, and appreciate you bringing that to the table today as well. Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Okay, excellent. Well, hopefully everyone's had a chance to review, the electronic packet that we had emailed out earlier in this week, or else in your hard copy of our minutes from November 18th. And if so, we would look for a motion to approve the November 18th, 2022 MPO meeting minutes.
I'll make that motion.
Motion by Jack. Thank you, Jack. Do we have a second?
Brad Kerstetter, second.
Brad, thank you for the second. All in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, same sign. Okay, hearing none, the minutes are approved. They'll be uploaded to our website afterward, and I appreciate that action item. Our normal item of business after the minutes approval is the TIP administrative modifications and amendments. Those begin in your packet on page 8. You'll see a rundown of those amendments, administrative actions, beginning with District 2 on pages 8 to 10. We'll probably go ahead and take a vote on the amendments, 3 of those first, and then we'll do the administrative actions afterward. So I wanted to open up the floor to Mr. Schultz, Mark from District 2. If you could give us an overview of the TIP adjustments in District 2.
Thank you, Steve, and welcome everyone. It's good to see some new faces in there, and look forward to working with you in the future. Starting right off the top with the amendment, action code or action ID 128022, we have an adjustment to a construction phase for Clinton County 880 Rashtown Creek. There was an increase in funds needed for that due to some adjustments to the scope of work. Followed that with adding a project phase, construction phase for the 2021 bridge preservation. The 2021 bridge preservation involved 2 bridge projects, one in Lock Haven area and one in Renova. The Renova bridge is continuing and had some cost increases because of some increased steel repair needs that were necessary and identified during the 2022 construction season. That work will continue into 2023. And on the bottom of that first amendment is the SEDA COG bridge epoxy surface. These are bridges that have recently been repaired or replaced, and we're looking to get an epoxy surface treatment onto those bridges, add a new project to the TIP to be epoxy surface treatment only for recently completed bridge projects. Moving then to administrative action below that, there was an adjustment for the 22 P41 Juniata Bridge project. This is a project that includes 6 bridges along US 22, 322. This is an NHS corridor. We're working diligently to complete this project. It's supposed to be bid in April, May timeframe. This will involve 6 bridges, 4 bridge replacements, and 2 bridge rehabilitations for their decks. It's a major project, and we're hoping to have this project out for construction, and it'll be at least two construction season project. It had a significant increase because of the scope of work change from rehabilitation to bridge replacement on 2 of those 6 bridge structures. Moving down to the third, we have an adjustment in there for a project that had, this is also the 22 P41. We took money from the reserve line item in 2023, moved those funds into the project to balance and kind of settle in those funds that were needed. We move down to the fourth item with an amendment, and we have a number of amendments here from the reserve line item. The 2024 SEDA COG Bridge Preservation Project, we have an adjustment there for a new start for a PE phase. This is going to incorporate and advance this project so that we can get out to, I believe, another 6 bridge preservation interests within the Juniata area. The Juniata 22 Thompsontown bridges, we recognize that there is a bridge camber issue, and we've been talking with, I believe, Brad and our county maintenance, our PennDOT County maintenance manager in that area. This is, you see tire skips on the roadway at this location. What's happening is that the bridge camber did not come out when the bridge was originally constructed. We're looking to get back into this area, reconstruct the bridge deck. We're looking for alternatives if we can epoxy, if we can seal, if we can replace some joints, but believe that it's going to be a major project and potentially involve a full replacement of the bridge structures at that location. This would be 2 bridges, but this is on 22 the 4-lane section through there, 2 lanes north, 2 lanes south, actually 2 lanes east and 2 lanes west. And then as we move down, similar situation in Clinton County with the 22 P64 for Youngdale bridges. These are small bridge structures and will be jump-started in advance to move forward with those as well. Moving down to the next amendment for these are new new construction interests. We have a Mifflin 22 solar powered chevrons. This is sequential lighting chevrons that will be just south of Lewistown area on US 22 in Mifflin. We have a project that's coming up for bidding in April. We're going to be installing in solar powered sequential chevrons in the 22 area of NHS route US 22. And below that, we also have the high friction surface treatment interest. We're going to be replacing the high friction surface area on 322 coming into just above Burnham on the, we found this to be it was a safety interest from, I believe, 6 years ago. Because we had low friction on the roadway, we applied the high friction surface treatment and have found this to be a very successful treatment for the safety interests along that curve. The material has started to wear away, so we're going to mill off the existing material. We're going to incorporate through another project or another fund source, we're going to incorporate some bridge deck repairs, and then we're going to come back in to apply the high friction surface in that area of 322 of Mifflin. Same scenario, companion type project for Juniata on SR 74, where a significant curvature in the roadway has led to a number of accidents or incidents that have led to vehicles off the road. So application of the high friction surface has been approved through our safety, and we'll be utilizing our safety funds. Moving down to the reserve line item, there was an adjustment influx of the obligation funds. We had a project that was able to free up. It was a completed project that we were able to free up and bring $200,000 of STP funds back into the line item. And then we'll be utilizing those funds moving forward into other projects as well. We had cost adjustments for Overdoe Run. We have cost adjustments for SR 1012 Laurel Run Bridge and SR 3001 Kish Creek Bridge. And the amendment, let's see, we're moving down to the District 3 amendments on page 11 at that point. So I'll wrap up my scenario there for District 2 on page 10. Are there any questions on any of those?
Okay, great. Thank you, Mark, for the summary. If there aren't any questions, we'd look for a motion to approve the District 2 amendments first.
Steve, it's Brad. Motion to approve the amendments.
Thank you, Brad, for the motion. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Second by Jack. Thank you, Jack. All in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
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 Any opposed, same sign. Okay, hearing none, we'd also look for a motion to approve the administrative actions for District 2.
So move, Frank Hampton.
Okay, thank you, Frank, for the first. Do we have a second?
Steve, it's Brad. I'll second it.
Thank you, Brad. All in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
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 Okay, any opposed, same sign. Okay, hearing none, those have passed. And just a reminder for those of you who are maybe newer, the amendments are those new projects using federal funds most commonly that rise to that category. And then if it's an adjustment of $2 million or more, there's some others within our TIP modification procedures, as you'll recall, but those are kind of the primary ones. We're using new projects with federal funds and those adjustments of 2 million or more. So thank you, Mark, for your steady work on those and getting those adjustments all entered in and those safety upgrades that we kind of reviewed in the past with the high friction surface treatment. So thank you for your hard efforts on that. We are now into District 3, as Mark had mentioned, begins on page 11 of your packet. And so, John, we'd look for you to guide us through the summary of the modifications you want to reference on District 3.
Very good, Steve. Can you hear me?
Sounds good, thanks.
Thank you. Good morning, everybody. In the beginning of District 3 section, you'll see the amendments that were approved by everybody from the last meeting. And we, I just want to thank you for your concurrence and the approval for those. Moving down through this, you'll see some cost adjustments being made. We're basically at this point, we're trying to catch up from where we were on the, this is kind of a little bit of an ongoing theme from where we were from the last program to this program. I got that about finished up. There's some adjustments here to finalize that. So basically that's mostly done. I'm now going through and trying to catch up everything else to the realization that we, when we did this program, that we were in the mid-end of 2021. And from then till now, as you know, things have changed in the cost world of things. So it's basically kind of an ongoing battle here. And luckily, when we did get the extra funding, I did a lot of inflation adjustment to a lot of projects. That's kind of saving our program as it is, but it's running out really quick as the projects move on and go to out for bidding and ultimately out to construction. So far so good, but we're starting to see where it's kind of wearing a bit thin, just to let everybody know. So I haven't had to make anything really drastic yet, but I'm starting to get the verge if we see continued large increases that we may have to start seeing cuts into our program and defer some projects. Moving on, what two projects I will point out is that we actually got awarded in the region a multimodal project in Columbia County for, multimodal project in Northumberland County in Lewis Township for a local bridge, I believe replacement. Let me go look here. Yep, for a bridge replacement, as well as an Arley project in Columbia County on SR 42 Mall Boulevard and SR 4003 Frosty Valley Road. So those are two nice additions to the program that didn't come out of our original program. And again, moving on, basically the remainder is some cost increases and adjustments to, you know, current estimates and where we are at with some of these projects at this time. I'll take any questions.
Great, thank you, John. Do you know what the main drivers are inflationary right now? You know, what categories are getting affected the most?
In truth, Steve, those have seemed to normalize a bit. It's just the fact that what we're going with right now on the program is so far behind of where that normalized that we're playing catch up to a bit. If you know what I mean. I'm basically, our estimates are back from late 2021 and now being early 2023, that year that's passed or plus, you know, we've seen, you know, large increases. You know, I can't really put a number on it because it kind of fluctuates per project, but I'd say anywhere between 5 and 15%, you know, in costing, you know, increases. And of course, that's not too terrible for the smaller projects, but when you start getting into the larger ones, that starts to, you know, affect, you know, the program a bit more.
Sure. Okay, thank you. Any other questions for John on the District 3 adjustments?
Hey, Steve, this is Mark Schultz, and I just wanted to add very quickly that as John mentioned, that the funds and the estimates were from 2021. The reason for that is the TIP development cycle, and that the TIP was in lockdown for the 2022 review and approval before it became a live document in 2023. So it's something that we battle statewide, and unfortunately, as John's mentioning, that with inflation factors and increased costs in construction, and not only in construction, we're seeing increases in other phases as well as in our design needs as well. So just wanted to bring that out for some of our new members, that it's part of our cycle, it's part of our process. We got hit really hard with the increased costs, material costs, and now we're seeing increased labor costs as well. So thank you.
Okay, thank you for the supplement there, Mark. If there aren't any other questions on specific projects, we'd look for a motion to approve the District 3 TIP administrative actions, please.
Mark Calusi, so moved.
Mark, thank you for the motion. Do we have a second?
I would second that, Mark Schultz.
Mark, we got Mark squared there. Thank you, Mark Calusi and Mark Schultz for the first and the second. All in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed, same sign. Okay, thank you. One other thing we wanted to reference here, back late last fall, we started to do an interactive web map as kind of a guide for members on these TIP adjustments. You could drill down and see what was occurring. And so we have that, Michelle, if you're able to share screen, just in case you didn't look at it in advance of today's meeting, wanted to bring it up here quickly. Do that one right there, so you can get that. And share. Okay, great. Hopefully you're all able to see that, but Bryce picked up the original work from Catherine that she had done. And so you can kind of zoom around and pan, and the project lines you can click on, and it'll bring up a pop-up menu. If you didn't test it out in advance today, it'll have the project title, it'll have the let date on there, it'll have what the adjustments are, taken from the packet handouts, amounts they're coming from and to, and what they are. So hopefully you'll find that's useful. Sometimes it can be hard to think about all these projects across the 8-county region and what's involved with them. So if you have any comments, improvements, enhancements that you'd like to see, feel free to let us know. And Bryce has some great ideas how to make this more effective in the future. So we just want to bring that to your attention. If you didn't click on the link, it was in the advance packet notification that Michelle had shared out earlier this week. And hopefully that'll be of use to you all. Any questions on that?
No, good work on that though.
Great, thank you.
I would also like to add, amendments are in orange lines, and the actions are yellow. If you click on any of the lines, you'll get that pop-up. And that bottom right has the little imagery thing. If you click on that, you'll get the, satellite imagery base map. So as you can see there, if it's gonna go. Nope.
Do you want me to click on that?
Yeah, if you could
Michelle?
click on it, yeah,
I'm
yeah.
so sorry.
Oh, no, you're okay. It takes a little bit just because of big map, but
Yeah, pulling all that data out.
okay, well, maybe not. So that's something I gotta fix, but in theory.
You can stop sharing and showing that. So thank you, Bryce, for that, and we appreciate PennDOT getting.
There and
Think we're covered, I think there. Okay, yeah, maybe with stopping the share screen, maybe you hit the stop recording. So I think we're resuming, hopefully.
It says recording.
Okay, good. Thank you. Other normal things we have here in the packet, page 17 is just those projects that were identified in the past, and there was some delay in those actually getting added to the TIP. As John mentioned, there's some RLE funds for the project in Columbia County, and there's some development going in there that will result in some improvements as well in that quarter on Route 42 in Hemlock Township. So that's good to see moving forward. The Appalachian Regional Commission Access Road projects are on there. They had a few hiccups, and so we can check back with Betsy in the near future. Lockwood that manages the grant side of things on those. See if there's any additional updates from those local project sponsors, but hopefully we'll get more progress on those occurring here. And then just want to put that reminder out that it's a continuing process. If you have local access roads, you have businesses that will be benefiting from a new access road or upgrades to an existing access road, be thinking about those and trying to scope those out and feed those to Betsy Lockwood as she handles that for actually the entire 11 county SEDA COG region. And usually those kind of scopes of work proposals are due in the June timeframe. And then you can kind of advance, do a little brief application to DCD, and then see if you get invited for a full application. So I just want to put that reminder out, that kind of typical annual process for the access roads. And with that, we'll go ahead and hear again from John, if you don't mind, agenda item E, to give us a summary of some of the recent work on the CSVT project and potentially the Route 54 project in Montour County, if there's updates there. Thank you, John.
Very good, Steve. Thank you. Starting with CSVT, the northern section, basically, I don't have anything to report, and I won't report on anything anymore as it is open and seems to be working pretty well. So again, unless somebody at the end has some specific things they want to get with me on the north section, this will probably be the last time I talk about it. So now moving on to the southern section, which will be the remainder of the report for the near future till we get it open. Starting with the ongoing earthwork contract. One highlight in the utility coordination world, PP&L recently completed and energized the last of their electric transmission lines that needed to be relocated. Several high voltage lines needed to be raised or shifted, and the last of these, which cross CSVT at both Stettler Avenue and Sunbury Road, were put into service just before Thanksgiving. PP&L is finishing some cleanup work this month and probably will be done here within the next few weeks. This was probably the most substantial utility relocation required for CSVT. So we're pretty pleased that this is complete. Other than that, on the earthwork side, continuing with prep work for this year's construction season start with work site activities to continue to fluctuate throughout the remainder of the winter into spring, where they'll start gearing up then for the normal construction season. Moving on to the second contract for structures. We're starting to wrap up individual plans for 9 new bridges in that contract, and final reviews are underway on some of them right now. We'll soon turn our attention to preparing specifications and other bidding documents for the contract. We continue to anticipate letting the contract later this year and starting work on the structures next year. One thing to know is we learned just before the holidays that PennDOT is being awarded $69 million in discretional federal funding for CSVT from the Rural Service Transportation Grant Program under the bipartisan infrastructure law. An application was submitted in May requesting just over $83 million for CSVT from this competitive grant program, in which US DOT received applications requesting a total of roughly $10 billion from the program for the projects across the country. US DOT awarded 12 projects for the total of a little over $270 million, with CSVT receiving the single largest amount. The award funding is to be used to supplement the funding for the second structure contract for the southern section. Special thanks to Steve Herman and SEDA COG for assisting with this application, and thanks to all those who provided letters of support for the application. So thanks again, everybody. This is a really nice chunk of money that basically is going to supplement state funds that could go to much needed other places. So thanks again, Steve, and thanks to you, SEDA COG, and everybody else that participated in the development of the application for the grant. Steve, you specifically asked about the traffic volume study, currently wrapping up a simple summary of traffic counts that we performed in the fall to provide an initial assessment of how the northern section's opening has changed the traffic volumes on existing roads. These should be finalized in the next couple of weeks. Once finalized, the district will most likely issue a press release. So again, Steve, we should be getting this out to you guys here pretty soon.
Great.
At this time, I don't have an update for Route 54 and 642 north of Danville, the realignment safety, intersection realignment safety improvement project, but I should have something for you by the March meeting. And I'll take any questions.
Any questions for John? Okay, very much appreciate the update, and those of you driving along the corridor certainly will see a lot of activity, even though we're into the wintry season on the southern section as that work continues with the contractors there. So thanks for the updates, John. We'll look forward to more in March on St. Patrick's Day will be our next meeting, I think. So everybody wear your green that's coming to join us. Next on the agenda, item F. We don't have anything in the packet, but we're very pleased. You heard from David Juba earlier about the stop hopper service update for today. That's something we've been promoting, within the region. Been working with Rapid Transit on some data and some analysis and mapping in the past, and we're very excited about what they're accomplishing out there and the needs that they're serving for our public transportation services and folks that don't have access to a vehicle and have these regular trips that need to be served, and it's offering them a great option. So we're very pleased to have David join today and give us an update on that and the items you mentioned earlier that were requested at the last meeting, some of the same day service and kind of the longer intercity commute type options as well. So David, if you're able to go ahead and share your screen and provide your presentation, we would welcome that.
Steve, this is Beth. Just give him 1 minute because his screen froze.
Oh, no.
He just called me, so he was going to leave and come back in.
Okay, yep, that's fine. Thank you.
What's a virtual meeting without technical difficulties, right?
Right, yeah, they pop up and show their faces to us pretty often.
Yeah.
But yeah, we've shared the links before in the past, the flyers about this with the members, and I know some of the county planners were very interested in the service and the options that it was presenting, and the routes, especially I think in the strip down in 11 and 15 corridor were being very highly used. So we're glad to see that is being taken advantage of by customers throughout the region and helping them get the medical appointments, employment, and so forth. So we're really glad to have this update. Back late last year, fall, we also worked to get a presentation to the Greater Silicon Valley Chamber. I know Jenny, you sit on those, and we gave some summaries to the folks that sit on that committee for transportation purposes through the chamber as well. And I'm glad to have David and Beth and Byron, I believe, is joining us here today for Rapid Transit. Byron Noon. So I think David was admitted. Are you able to hear us, David, and follow along? Great.
Yep, audio is back online. Apologies, joy of technical glitches. So I do have a quick presentation, and I'll try to keep it short, being that we are covering 3 separate subjects. So again, thank you for the introduction. And without further ado, I'll dive right into that. So before I dive in, can you see the presentation? I'm kind of moving it around, but there we go.
Yep, looks good.
Okay, this will be relatively short, but just as a preliminary background for those that are not familiar, the Stop Hopper service is a microtransit or on-demand service that Rabbit Transit began to operate August of 2018, but more recently for your area of service, we started service in Selinsgrove, Sunbury, approximately December of 2021, and then in Lewisburg, Milton, and Danville, Bloomsburg, Danville, starting March of 22. The service has been operating fairly well in those areas, and we appreciate all the assistance and engagement we've gotten from the local community. The Stop Hopper service is an intended sort of fill the gaps, middle ground opportunity for traditional public transportation. So we have fixed route services, those fixed big buses on a schedule kind of mentality, and then we have paratransit, which primarily supplements those with medical or other needs that they otherwise are unable to get to without their own transportation. So on demand essentially fills some of the gaps where we haven't been able to justify fixed, and they're not really met, or the needs aren't really met with the paratransit model. So traditionally what I like to do with these meetings or updates is just provide sort of quick visuals. I know there's a lot of things or a lot of information that gets run through in MPO meetings. Figure a visual is nice to enlighten once in a while and change it up. So for each of the service areas, I did a quick visual map in terms of origin, destination, and some quick line art indicating trips and activities that we've had from October 1, 2022 to December 31st of the same year. So obviously there's a lot of information going on the map, but basically green dots are origin, red dots are destinations. They are clustered for ease of visibility. Apologies, it's a lot of information. Not specific to this area, but it's almost 8,000 trips across the 3 service areas. And obviously the darker and more dense the line, the more the activity. So you'll probably see there's a lot of activity on that US 11 to Sunbury corridor, a lot of shopping, or at least I can't necessarily correlate trip purpose, but I can say that the 3 primary destinations, if you're tying it to specific sites in the Sunbury Selinsgrove areas, the 3 highlighted on here. So the Walmart, Susquehanna Valley Mall area, the Giant and Wise Markets, food, grocery locations. And again, there's a lot of areas, as you'll probably see, clustered in that Sunbury downtown region. A lot of those are home or just basically clustered locations that it's harder to pull out specific destinations. But key point being is that we have seen a very large use. Sunbury Selinsgrove is probably our largest area overall. And I'm going to obviously send this presentation to Steve and the team there so they can send it out for anybody that's interested in sort of a deeper dive, and always happy to answer questions specifically. But jumping into the Lewisburg Milton visual, again, you'll see that a lot of Walmart, Graham's, a apartment complex or a home community on the southwest corner there. And then Arch Street Commercial, I just sort of labeled this as a generic sort of point of interest. There's a lot of shops along that corridor on Arch Street that are generating a lot of activity in the Milton side of things. So again, just sort of alluding to, there is a lot of activity between the 2 counties as you sort of cross the water there. So interesting to see the connectivity of those 2 communities. And then the Bloomsburg Danville, which is obviously the largest sort of geographic presence, being that they're 2 separate service areas with a connecting point in the middle. Again, a lot of shopping centers, Main Street, commercial locations, Lionsgate Apartments, and then of course the Geisinger Medical Center has generated a lot of activity. And being that the Bloomsburg side of things is sort of just a blob, as you may see there with the Main Street commercial marker, we did try to do a little bit of a pull-in or an inset visual to give you a sense of activity. But again, a lot of it is home to destination travel, so it's hard to, I don't want to pull out specific home destinations because that's a little private for them. But as you can see, there's a lot of distinct activity in that downtown area in Bloomsburg. So I know I'm blazing through these sort of quickly, but being mindful that we do have quick presentations from Brian and Beth as well, I want to be mindful of time. So jumping into the numbers, and apologies, some of the numbers are hidden for me with the visual and for faces and whatnot there. But again, the Northern Micro has been operating since December of 21, but I did just do a snapshot of the October to December timeline. approximately 8,000 riders in the 63-day window. And I should note that these are Monday through Friday services, so it is weekday only. So we're looking at about 121 riders a day, which is a growth from the 78. So you'll see in those parentheses numbers for each of those data sets or metrics. Those are indicating the last time that we presented to you. So just a point of reference there. So passengers per revenue hour, also seeing a marginal increase there. And I will say that of the 3 zones of operation, the Sunbury or the Selinsgrove Sunbury is significantly higher than the other 2 at about, I think, 3.5. So again, this is average for the North in general. Just a quick snapshot of average weight and travel. So I usually round that to sort of the whole trip perspective. So considering the growth in ridership, the growth in travel and wait time has not been substantive, which is fantastic to know that quality of service is not taking a significant hit for volume of service. Average ride rating. So at the end of every trip, a rider is offered the opportunity to submit a 5-star out of a 5-star system, their rating, and also they can leave a narrative and or some quick comments like great driver, or bad routing, whatever the case. Generally speaking, service ratings, and this is rare for transit, so I always like to point it out that, the ratings have been very positive, 4.9 out of 5 stars. And for those that we do see lower ratings, we try to reach out to them and coordinate and understand quality of service concerns. Then leading into aggregation, and the key part to this is just to show that it's a ride sharing service. It's not sort of one-off trip scenario, which is to, again, point to why this is a transit initiative and not otherwise. So again, aggregation has been growing and has been very positive in general with, again, more than one person on the bus or vehicle at a given time, which has been fantastic. And I always like to point out one-day positives. So December 2nd was actually our one-day rider high of 186. And in previous, you may have noticed the number to be higher, but I should note that when I showed you that number in the previous report, it was for all of microtransit service. This is strictly for the 3 northern zones that we're pointing out to you today. So otherwise, you see a quick visual of weekly ridership. You will see a dip one of those weeks at 488. That was over Thanksgiving, so not a terribly large surprise. We tend to see dips around holidays, and our service hours are modified according to those holidays. So again, I realize this is sort of a quick bluster of information, so I do apologize to that point. But I'm always happy to field questions. My contact information is available there. And again, Steve has that. So if there's interest in follow-up or more information, happy to pass that along. Otherwise, just a quick touch on some of the marketing activities. We are, being that service is sort of stabilizing, which is fantastic, but we do continue, or we do obviously try to see growth. We are doing targeted YouTube ads, Facebook ads, and then of course our drivers do flyer drop off at major destinations or locations within the service areas periodically so that the information remains fresh. So again, if there's points of interest or if you want presentations or more information, always happy to assist. So with that, happy to pause and answer questions. And otherwise, I do have Steve. I don't know if you want me to just pass it along to Brian and then Beth at this point, or if we want to cycle back to it at a later point. So I'll pause.
Sure, maybe we'll just do quick questions on the overview that Dave has given on the stop hopper service at this time. And then, yeah, we'll do that segue into Beth and Brian's updates for us here. One quick question I had, it's excellent to see those ratings from your customers and riders. Is there anything they're noting in terms of improvements that's rising, bubbling up, or maybe additional zones they want to see served or anything like that you've been digesting?
Yeah, I mean, over the term of the project, we have expanded the zones slightly based on customer requests and local industry interest, whatever the case may be. So we are able to make minor adjustments to the service areas as those come in. Obviously, we have to evaluate against quality of service, but thus far, knock on wood, we've been able to accommodate all of them. Generally speaking, across the board, the only other requests we've been getting, and this is both for the North and in general, is requests for expanded hours or different service days like weekends. Unfortunately, we are sort of restricted by our budgetary capabilities, and the hours and the service days are sort of outside of the purview of what we can modify right now. But again, the more feedback we receive, the more ammunition and information that provides for us for future discussions.
And in terms of the funding, this was kind of set out, I guess, somewhat as a pilot initiative, but are you able to talk about that at all in terms of the longer term sustainability and funding for it?
Yeah, so to my understanding, the funding for this is through a departmental approval of service. So basically a short-term pilot program through PennDOT, obviously with some local components included. I know Rich is in the early stages of preparing some of his own conversations to be had with local leadership. But I do know that, we would be looking for some local support at the end of the pilot period. Again, it is a 3-year pilot, so we also still have to evaluate the long-term viability if it is both sustainable and sensible for the communities that they're being serviced. Thus far, the service has been positive, but again, it's a 3-year project. So as I alluded to, we started in December of 21, so we still have approximately 2 years before we're going to get into more of the, for lack of phrasing, the bigger asks of local communities should that need arise.
Great, thank you, David. Very much appreciate all you've been doing to promote this and make it a great workable option for a number of folks that didn't have this kind of service available to them in the past. So appreciate that update. Any other questions for David before we move into the additional aspects from Rapid Transit? Okay, if not, then we'll share the PowerPoint when we do the ticker kind of follow-up email afterward here. We receive that from David, and then I guess Beth or Brian, whoever wants to go next, who would you like to take the next helm here?
Yeah, Brian, would you like to present next? And if you're comfortable, I can do the presentation, or you can pull it up and share at your own pace, whichever way works for you.
Good morning, all. Yeah, David, I'll be able to share from here. That'd be great.
Thank you.
Thanks a lot for the invitation this morning. I'm happy to discuss the inner city bus program. Are you able to see my screen?
Yes, coming up, yep, a PDF. Great.
Wonderful. All right, so the inner city bus program actually has been around for quite a while. It's a federally funded initiative to ensure that there's transportation options to get folks who are in rural communities to some of the urban hubs. Historically in Pennsylvania, PennDOT's worked directly with contractors to provide these services, but effective last year, Rapid Transit's begun to administer the program, and we work directly with Fullington Trailways and Greyhound to provide these services. And what we've done in this redesign is to find some efficiencies, and we're kind of charged with finding some innovations on how to provide these services and increase ridership. As you might imagine, with transit and transportation in general, there's some slowdown in services, reduced ridership due to the pandemic, but we are seeing an increase in the services and ridership here recently. So again, it is federally funded. We work directly with the current providers, Trailways and Greyhound. We were actually out in the field observing the service, assessing the drivers, assessing the stops. And one of our main initiatives is to see who's riding and providing the services for the population that's most inclined to ride the buses. So what we're seeing, or what the data has shown, is usually it's young folks, and often on the buses, it's mostly college students that I've seen out there. Obviously, folks who have limited transportation options, they also ride. There are a lot of individuals who are, being released from correctional facilities who are in transit as well. So we see a good mix of folks out there on the buses, and it is a statewide initiative. So these routes are ongoing, fixed schedule routes that basically cover all of the state. There are 65 stops, 10 routes in total and 65 stops. And based on this mapping, you can see that there are some routes that have some duplication on some of the stops. So some of these stops actually have multiple buses or coaches that are stopping there on a daily basis. And these aren't transit buses, these are coaches with restrooms and so forth because of the nature of the long distance travel. But these are 7-day-a-week routes, and they range in times of day and so forth. But there was a very strategic effort to find the most efficient way, where the most need was. And again, we wanted to ensure as much coverage and access to these services as possible. But in particular to SEDA COG, you can see that based on the route design, there are many routes in your region. About 17 stops are in the SEDA COG region. And we want to, definitely ensure that the stops are going on a regular basis, that the services are appropriate and available for individuals. But I think one of the most important things that we're looking at now is there's a lot of infrastructure that are running parallel to one another, and we want to take some steps so there's better linkages between this type of ICB service, this long distance coach service, and existing local transit systems. And that's actually been the direction we've been given from our leadership at PennDOT to move local transit closer to the ICB program. So in your area, obviously with Sunbury and some of those other major stops, Rapid Transit's already in those corridors. So we want to start to test some initiatives to, again, get folks closer to the inner city bus program so they can do some of these long trips to various parts of the state, as well as go on to other modes of transportation. As you can see in the green lines here, Amtrak is close to a few of our stops. There are a couple airports along the way. So, our initiative in the second year of administering this program really is the idea of getting those intermodal connections more to the forefront, finding ways to increase ridership and to make our services available to a broader scope of individuals. So the idea of stop hopper and on-demand services to get people to the ICB stops, that's definitely an initiative that we are going to explore so we can start to maximize some of these resources. And I think the notion from the PennDOT's perspective is with the successes that Rapid Transit has demonstrated with transit, that we can find some innovative ways to connect this inner city bus program with transit, not only for the system that we're responsible for, but modeling some of these good practices in other transit systems across the state. Again, being mindful that this is really an informational presentation, I am available for questions now and or later. My contact information is showing on the screen now, and I believe these slides will be shared with the group. So if there are any questions at the moment, I'll be happy to entertain those. Otherwise, feel free to reach out in any means that you're most comfortable, and I'll be happy to answer questions at that time as well.
Great. Thank you, Brian, for running through that. And yeah, if you're able to share your PDF as well, we'll get that out to the membership with our normal follow-ups. But very exciting. I know that's been identified as a need in our coordinated transit plan for a number of years to help individuals make those long distance trips. So as you're going to make those linkages and connections between your system and then the larger intercity bus, that's a very exciting venture.
Thank you. We look forward to working with you, and by all means, any questions, send them our way. We'll be happy to field them for you.
Any questions for Brian before we go on to Beth's report? Okay, hearing none. Beth, the floor is yours then. Thank you.
Super, thank you. So can everybody see the same day shared ride pilot program flyer?
Yes.
Okay, super. So just to kind of round it out, transit service, we've started a pilot program to our traditional paratransit riders for a same day service. So on our website, and I'll make sure, Steve, that you get the link to that too, there are traditionally paratransit trips need to be scheduled by 1:30 the day prior to when you want to take your trip. And that's caused inconvenience for a lot of people who may wake up in the morning and realize, oh my gosh, I forgot to book a trip, or I need to go to the grocery store, things like that. So across the state, several agencies are doing different pilot programs, and we're learning from each other what is working best. So here is a list of our guidelines. So a rider can call in. Now you do have to be registered as a paratransit rider, which is a fairly simple process. There's an online application, but you call in about 2 hours, at least 2 hours before you want to take your trip. and flexibility in your time is always a good thing. And so you call in before 1:30 and you can, they can check, and it goes by capacity. So if they can fit you in, then you're good to go. There is a $1 additional convenience fee for a trip that you're taking on the same day that you requested. And we have like the normal paratransit ride guidelines. So if you want to take a trip out of county, they try to keep those like within certain hours. So when we have the most amount of buses that are traveling longer distance, it also keeps it out of like the peak hours, generally speaking, for those longer trips. But if you're traveling, you know, Sunbury to Selinsgrove, I mean, this is going to overlap somewhat with the microtransit service, but it also provides a same-day option for all the riders who are not in those regions. So far it's going pretty well. We did a soft launch the end of October into November. There have been flyers on the buses and press releases. So we've been going, and I did take a look this morning. There so far there in the SEDA COG region, there have been 18 completed same-day shared ride trips. So it's about like one a day. That's just in January. So from the 1st. So coming off the holiday and stuff. So it does help to also fill that need for when people want to travel on today. So that's that.
Thank you, Beth. Yeah, I know that's kind of been a challenge and a barrier for folks for a long period of time, and that interest in the same day service. So thank you for making that work and fitting within your system and your operation.
Yep. So we just also, you know, the more awareness there is of this, the better. So we'll make sure that flyer gets to you along with David and Brian's information.
Great, we appreciate that. Maybe one quick final question for me before any others from the group. In terms of kind of like the driver shortages and issues there, is that kind of stabilized for you as well? And is that affecting any of the same day service marketing?
Well, drivers for I think all transit services, I don't care what the mode is always a challenge. So we always say, well, if you know somebody who is looking for a job, you know, we should never stop recruiting. So it's always a challenge, but once, you know, when you know who's out there, depending on where somebody's going, they look and see. And Dana and Michelle and their staff do a great job of trying to accommodate everybody.
Thank you. Any other questions for Beth, David, or Brian?
Thanks.
Hearing none, we very much appreciate the time from all of you and the information you shared here today. Serving important needs, and we'll make sure we provide your supplemental materials in our follow-up. So thank you, David, Brian, and Beth, for joining us today. Okay, thanks. Following along in our packet here, we're sailing along up into item G. That begins on page 20 of your packet, I believe, our normal customary updates on the Unified Planning Work Program. Sorry, page 19. I'm just going to highlight a couple items here. You all received this in the advance packet, and also in the room here, it's in your hard copy. But I just wanted to note a couple things that we've been working on since November for your benefit. First one, the annual listing of obligated projects, 3/4 of the way down the page on page 19. That's a federal requirement. You know, we have to fulfill each year. So we have to prepare a listing and a report of every transportation project that had federal funds obligated toward it during the federal fiscal year. So Kristen prepared that and got that posted on the website. It needs to be published there, you know, by the end of the calendar year, and we met that well in advance. And we also put out a social media post about that as well to to advertise that more widely. So if you have an interest, feel free to look at that if you have not already and see what funds had federal funds obligated toward them in federal fiscal year 2022. Next one right down from that, the long range transportation plan. Yeah, our most recent one was adopted in June of 2020 and 21. And one of the things we always do is performance reporting on the various measures that are identified within the long range plan. We wanted to try and enhance that. We've been discussing that with MPO membership and with our open-end consultant team. And so we're beginning that process. We've kicked it off and had a meeting to kind of prepare more like an Esri ArcGIS online hub repository for these performance measures rather than a more static PDF report. It'd be more interactive and have the performance measures hosted online. You can kind of see where we're hitting our metrics, what the trend lines are, and additional documentation to be shared that way. So we think that'll be beneficial. And then once we have it up and running, we'll be maintaining that and look forward to maybe applying that to other things such as the transportation improvement program and other needs that we want to try and get things out there more visually appealing and graphically and easily digested by all our stakeholders. So more to come on that, but it should be finalized probably by June for the new online dashboard for the long range plan performance measures. Next on page 20, we added in about the National Electric Vehicle Infrastructure Grant Program. That's one of the newer things that came out of the bipartisan infrastructure law. So PennDOT issued a press release back in the earlier part of this month, and the application period's open from February until April. So if you recall, there has to be build out of the electric vehicle charging stations on the alternative fuel corridors and interstate lookalikes. So that's where the first priority is going to be, having those space within the limits that they should be, and then there can be further opportunities and applications to be entertained there. But we'll look forward to more, and we know the electric vehicle registrations are rising, so that's going to become more and more important. Next with that, also the bipartisan infrastructure law, we wanted to share some additional resources. You can click on those within the packet, but just to highlight, Federal Highway Administration has prepared a 2023 discretionary grant notice of funding opportunities kind of calendar look ahead. So if you're thinking about some of these discretionary grants, that gives you a schedule so you can kind of prepare thoroughly and not be caught off guard when the actual application and notice of funding opportunity is issued. And then also there's a grant prep checklist that they've prepared. There's a variety of resources. We've been sharing those, and it can be pretty daunting sometimes to pursue these federal grants, but we wanted to make sure this information is out there if you're working on things to become as competitive as possible. The ARLI grants were announced. We put that in here. I don't know if we sent a separate email about the ARLI grants, since there was just one loan project in Mifflin County and Dairy Township was approved, but we were glad to see that come through for signal upgrades there on Electric Avenue and Logan Boulevard in Mifflin County and the greater Lewistown area. So that was nice. And the next round should open up probably in June if you're working on any traffic signal or other safety improvements. The automated red light enforcement grant program is usually a June 1st to June 30th deadline. Page 21, the new program, the Traffic Signal Technologies Grant Program from the state. There were 3 projects from the region approved: Porter Township in Clinton County, the town of Bloomsburg in Columbia County, and then Danville Borough and Montour County. So we're glad to see that those funds were awarded, and those will be moving forward here in the near future, hopefully, and get those connections and signal upgrades made. On page 22, just wanted to note, Kristen will hit later on more of the road safety review and the safety performance measures, but we've also been participating in the District 2 and District 3 highway safety plan process to help formulate that and talk about how we've been collaborating and working on safety projects to date and maybe some new things to consider. So as those safety plans are finalized, we'll make sure we share the links and resources out to the members. And toward the bottom of that kind of project support section, our newer member, Stephen Gibson, the Clinton County Planning Director, came in last Thursday and we did an orientation session with him. Kind of run through a lot of the core MPO business and kind of give him a snapshot of main regulations and planning requirements and touch on some of the alphabet soup of acronyms and everything that you all know we deal with. And that was a pretty good primer, I think. And if there's anybody that would like that as a refresher from the normal membership, feel free to let us know. But as we have new members, we like to do that orientation, run through a variety of resources with them. On page 23, I wanted to note that the highway performance monitoring system samples were completed and submitted to PennDOT ahead of the deadline. And that's an annual requirement that we have to kind of review these different segments for the roadway data and classifications of them. So that was met. Also on that kind of data GIS side, the major employer and critical facility inventories are still underway. Our intern Matt and Bryce are working on that to finalize that process, and we appreciate your county GIS directors and other folks supplying that data, and then everything that we work with will be made available for your uses as well. On the LTAP side, page 24, I'll just mention we've been having great success with the equipment operator training in collaboration with Penn College of Technology, and sending 10 people a year to that and getting some good hands-on experience. And I know Burrow's been sending folks each year, and that's been highly beneficial for your crew. And so we're going to do that again in June, but we're also exploring the opportunity to do a chainsaw safety workshop with Penn College of Technology as well. So as more comes together on that, we'll make sure we share it and advertise it to the members and the municipalities. So it's been several years since we did a chainsaw workshop, but I think that'll be timely and effective. That's the normal staff report items. We also have the TA set aside updates in this section, page 25. There are a couple milestones established for the North Branch Canal Trail. Those have been updated on there. And then likewise for the Bald Eagle Valley Trail, phase 5 in Clinton County on page 27. So those are called out in bold. Other normal things here are the highway occupancy permits and the traffic impact study scoping. Updates for you on what's being submitted to PennDOT and what's being processed there. And then we have a PennDOT Connects newsletter. So if you're not already receiving those, I recommend you sign up for those. They provide good information, I think generally on a quarterly basis. On page 30 that begins, and it notes how PennDOT Connects can be tapped for some grant assistance as well. So if you need help preparing a competitive discretionary grant application, some of the experts on the team for PennDOT Connects can help you through that process and developing that and providing some data as part of it. And then the training opportunities are referenced in there and some additional links as well. So in addition to LTAP and those services, there's some things that go above and beyond road safety and maintenance through PennDOT Connect. So just wanted to make sure we were hitting that point for the members as well. So with that, are there questions on any of the items included in the staff report or this section, or anything else that has struck in your mind?
Hey, Steve, this is Mark Schultz, District 2. Just wanted to mention that through PennDOT Connects, there is a municipal outreach session that's being planned on May 4th from 9 to 11. It's an opportunity to have a little bit of an insight on the PennDOT Connects process and take kind of questions and comments and kind of gather some information. It's available as a hybrid and or on-site at the District 2 office on May 4th between 9 and 11. There will be additional information, agenda items, and additional information coming in the future months.
Great, thank you, Mark. And that'll be an annual event then. The first one was last year, but members should look for that on an annual basis?
Yes.
Okay. Great, thank you. Any other questions or comments? Okay, hearing none, we are up to item H of your agenda, and that begins on page 36. So we'll segue over to Kristen to give us an update on the safety performance targets.
Sure. In your packet is an overview of those safety performance targets and the targets for 2023, as well as a letter from PennDOT on the topic. The MPO is required to establish targets for each safety performance measure within 180 days of when PennDOT selects their targets. And in this packet has information on that. The MPO needs to take action on our safety targets and provide that to PennDOT by February. And we are recommending that the MPO adopt the plan as proposed, which is a 2% reduction in fatalities and maintaining a level target in serious injuries.
Thank you, Kristen. Are there any questions about the information presented on pages 36 and 37, or about what's required of the MPO for target setting for safety performance measures?
Steve, this is Eric Staley. I just got a quick question. What happens if we don't meet these target measures?
Yeah, good question, Eric. There's really not much impact on the MPO itself. The main one would be if you're not currently obligating your safety funds at the extent or level you should be, and that's occurring within our region. We're not flexing these safety dollars into other uses on, highways or bridges for other needs. They're going into safety funds. So the main impact, at least as I understand, and districts can correct me, is for PennDOT. They have to do an implementation plan to identify on how all the safety funds were used and how they're going to try and correct that to make significant progress on at least 4 out of the 5 measures. So it's mainly a reporting mechanism impact, since we are obligating the safety funds to the extent that we should be. And so I'll maybe defer to Gene or Frank or others from either PennDOT on my take on that.
This is Frank. You got it. Basically, PennDOT would get their hands smacked. It's really important that we meet those targets, and we would have to be the ones doing the explaining.
Thank you.
Yeah, this is Gene. Yeah, they're really, the impacts would fall upon PennDOT, because then the sort of the penalty for not meeting the targets is they need to obligate an amount equal to the previous year's ASIP total based on not meeting the target. So there is like a real impact, but it's at the statewide level and not at the MPO level specifically.
None of us want to see the darker side of Gene. He's a nice guy. I don't want him to get angry.
Thank you, Frank.
Thank you for the question, Eric, and thanks for the clarification. Any other questions on the safety performance measures and target setting? If not, we would look for a motion to approve the statewide targets. Again, the 2% annual reduction in fatalities and maintaining level serious injuries, suspected serious injuries. So if we could have a motion to adopt the statewide targets, we will make sure that we confirm that with the letter that would go off to PennDOT. So do we have a motion?
So moved, Steve. Greg Moulter.
Greg, thank you for the motion. Do we have a second?
Steve Brad Kerstetter, second.
Brad, thank you for the second. All in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
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 Any opposed, same sign. Okay, hearing none, the motion has passed and been accepted. We have approved the statewide targets, and we'll confirm that with the submission to PennDOT afterward. Thank you. And Krista, for the road safety review process update. Thank you.
Continuing the road safety review process, at the last meeting, I gave an update on road safety reviews that were conducted in District 2 and District 3. And there were 2 counties that were, I don't want to say left off of that list, but the specific sites didn't lend themselves to being on site evaluations, as well as time-wise, it's a big region and it was difficult to get to all of the sites across the region. And so we have scheduled those remaining 2 locations. They will be virtual views. The 26th of January, there will be a virtual road safety review for Snyder County. I don't know if Lincoln on there. I don't know if he will want to join that for Snyder County. And then we will be having another virtual view for Clinton County, and that is on January 30th. So if any member out there is interested in participating in these, please let me know and we'll get you the virtual link. But again, those are for Snyder and Clinton.
Okay, thank you, Kristen. I appreciate all the members that participated in the earlier road safety reviews. It's really great to get out there in the field and talk about, you know, the existing issues and needs and what kind of solutions would make sense for them. So, and you're seeing some of the fruits of that, as we already hit earlier in the tip modifications in District 2 with those high friction surface treatments that are going to be placed in the District 2 portion of the region. So thank you for your involvement and interest there. And when the final reporting comes out, we'll be sure to share that with the members as well. Anything further, Chris?
No, that's it.
Okay. Thank you. No more further questions. We're up to agenda item J, and that is the local bridge prioritization process. Within the packet, page 42 begins with some PowerPoint slides on this. And just maybe those of you that weren't around for the 2023 TIP development or previous cycles of the TIP, which is updated every 2 years. We're in an odd number year now. So usually what that means is we'll be reaching out to all the counties and scheduling prioritization meetings to look at your local bridges that you want to see added to the TIP or updates on the current ones, any other safety projects or other projects that you have. We make sure that we're reflecting that in our process. And the State Transportation Commission, you know, also will be doing their outreach and their solicitation for input on the 12-year program development here probably early spring as well. So that's where we are in the odd years. And then we identify the priorities, you know, work in tandem with PennDOT on the needs and the projected funding and what we can do. And then the even number year, that's when we'll get to an adoption of the TIP process. Just that kind of high level summary for you. But within the packet here, PowerPoint slides show a little bit more background on the local bridge portion of this development. And so again, we're looking to do these priority county meetings. Following today's MPO meeting, we'll send off a doodle poll to the members and try and schedule those with you to talk about your local bridges and involve others that we identify in the slides here that you are interested in. Kind of other things that we do, there's data collection analysis. We take the factors from the bridge management system and one map features, looking at some of the local data sets that we have, looking at the financial guidance information and what kind of eligibility will be able to be brought to bear on some of these different bridge needs. Close coordination with PennDOT all throughout. And then as we get that, State Transportation Commission public input to consider that, in the process, in addition to what we hear from the local government members. And then as we march forward towards September is where we would look to have approval from the MPO on what the local bridge priorities are that come out of that, collection and scoring process. And then to work, with PennDOT to see how we can add these to the TIP or what other revisions need to be made or swapping out of projects. So timeline on page 44, we're at the initial stages here, with covering this and the presentation. There's kind of financial guidance that'll be coming out of PennDOT in the coming months and general and procedural guidance for the TIP development. So we'll have to factor that all in as well. But here over the next 3 months, we'll hopefully schedule those county prioritization meetings and also be going through the data that we'll be crunching and analyzing and doing a survey of the members. Once we kind of compile what your interests are, we've been using SurveyMonkey of late for you to weigh in on other measures that need to be reflected, or if there's things going on locally, maybe on the land use or development side that we're not aware of, that should be a factor. And just, other changes on the ground that aren't there right within the databases that should be factored in. Then we'll get through the remainder of the kind of quality assurance and control items, and hopefully get consensus on the top established priorities for local bridges to consider and incorporate into the next step by the September 15th MPO meeting. And then that'll be followed up by the submission to PennDOT to work with us. We're gonna finalize and get a draft tip out for the 2024 period. Does that timeline still seem agreeable? Sorry, I didn't speak with you ahead of time, but John and Mark in particular, does that seem okay to get the MPO priorities by mid-September?
I believe so, Steve.
Same here, Steve. I think that'd probably be really good. We could get it by September.
Excellent. Thank you, guys. So the county meetings that we'll look to schedule here, February, April, again, it'll be a doodle coming out probably in the next 2 weeks. So look for that from Bryce, as we'll be scheduling those and getting with you, and he'll have some interactive web mapping as part of that as well. Be a good guide for the process. So that'll be subsequent here today. But on your side, we showed several examples there. It's tailored to your needs as the county members, but a lot of times it's the voting member. If it's not the planning director as the voting member, then involve the planning department. Our staff at SEDA COG, from PennDOT side, usually we have the bridge unit, we have the planning and programming folks are engaged, municipal services, local projects coordinator, and then in Mark's shop at District 2, they also have a district planner. So more than likely, those would be the PennDOT representatives from the district. And then program center, Frank, our liaison in the program center, should likely be involved in several of those as well. The county commissioners, if you're so engaged with them and want them to be either actively involved in the meeting or just coordinating with them, the county bridge engineer, if there's any county maintenance staff or other personnel that should be involved, and then some if they're more closely collaborating with their economic development professionals or chambers of commerce, that kind of thing. And so the web map, again, will be a supporting aid and tool. So we'll share that once we get into the meetings for you to take a look at the different points where these bridges are and the basic data on them. Some of the main data features to consider, like the county priority. We've been doing your top 3, so they kind of get a little extra weight or scoring in the process. Certainly the type of bridge, or if it's posted, what it's serving, number of residents, businesses, the development around it, future development that's planned or proposed. Also impact to other facilities. If it's a bicycle, pedestrian, heavily used corridor, there's other activity centers along it. If it's school bus route, those are other kind of main factors that are looked at as part of this process. And then for emergency services as well, if there'd be a long detour, if the bridge were closed or things of that effect. And a lot of times these ones that are rural areas, for the agricultural impact is a major consideration as well for our ag industry. And then kind of more the resiliency side, if it's a scour critical bridge, if there's a flood history there, evacuation route, and then resiliency is a major thing, obviously we're all dealing with, and PennDOT probably will be preparing some new updated mapping on that, some of these most vulnerable locations for flooding as well. So if we receive that in time, we'll try and reflect that. Other things here on the quality checks are shown, and then on the funding side of things, just as we kind of work with what the projections are and what the different pots are eligible for these bridges. And so we'll work through that guidance as it becomes available, and where the ones maybe is more geared for a retroactive reimbursement where that makes more sense. So kind of multiple factors in play. and your survey responses and your data and information at the local level is very important for that process. So that will be reflected in our meetings and also through the Survey Monkey option to validate and give us additional information. And Decision Lens, those who've been along for several rounds of this know that's the tool we kind of use the decision support and plug this into that. And so we can have those outputs. You can see, the overall ratings and scores, what makes the biggest contribution to those. And there's some new features with this Decision Lens. So Rice is going through some training there, and they're really adding to their arsenal of what can be done through Decision Lens and some of the integration with other systems like ArcGIS and everything, and portfolios and tools there. So we can kind of present that to you as it becomes more available and use that for our checks and validation. So we know here on page 49, maybe some questions for the membership. We can prompt that if there's those who've been playing along for a while, if there's kind of more information you think you've needed as part of this process to date. If you think maybe there's a need for a follow-up call after our initial coordination meetings before we would get to the surveying. If you think there's a need like for an after-action review at the end of the process or any other ideas that you might have. We just wanted to put that out for the discussion here now. At this point, are there any questions from members or PennDOT about how this has worked to date or any other enhancements you want to see?
Steve, I have a question for PennDOT related to the bridges, but not so much on this project. I'm just wondering if we have ever had any follow-up to the status of the bridge bundling removal program. I know that was a push for a while, and we were trying to get some of those taken off the inventory, but I haven't seen anything as to a wrap up of where we stand, which ones have been completed, are there still some remaining? Just something we can update our commissioners on.
Sure, yeah, that one ran into some delays. I think it was going out for final design, but I know we don't have Aaron Christ on here that's managing that. But John, are you able to shed any more light on the status of the bridge removal bundle?
Yeah, Steve, actually, we've been working on an item for that. Right now, it's we're kind of waiting on, we have an item that we're going to submit. Of course, the original estimate we looked at, there wasn't a lot of things that we understood about this removal. And of course, over the years with inflation, we just don't have enough money, what we originally asked for, to try to get all the bridges that we believe we can remove removed. So, Mark's has seen it here in District 2, but we worked on basically a CPDM item to ask for an increase in funding. And we basically then tiered the projects in two different contract lets. The first one being basically the bridges that we know aren't going to give us really any like right of way or any other type of really big issues, to try to get them into the, to lettings or out for bid. And then another grouping that we were looking to then let later that do have issues in right of way or other that will take longer to get through the process to get to bidding. So that's basically where it stands. Until I get the item, we're actually kind of holding up a little bit of the consultants till we then can process their next agreement to move on with finishing up PE, which we're pretty well wrapped up with that, and then moving into the formal design.
And this was a multi-district initiative too, so it involved 2, 3, and 10. And as John alluded to, there were right-of-way issues sometimes with a few of these utility issues, and so just agreement-wise and project management-wise, it was really stretching, I think, a lot of people. But appreciate that update, and then it goes into final design. If you're able to share more of those updates, John, in the future, we can put those in the packet or just bring those out maybe for Greg and the others that had some bridges that were included on that bundle. That'd be great.
Will do, Steve. And like I said, once we get the item into central office, I'll give you a further update as well.
Great, thank you. Any other questions about the process or the tip development sequence or cycle? If not, we'll follow up with the email and doodle polls to start getting available dates for the members and look to schedule those sessions with you to review your priority bridges. Next on the agenda is item K, and Bryce is gonna give us an update. He's taken over the reins from Catherine Wild on the Middle Susquehanna Active Transportation Committee and getting up to speed with that and our coordination with the Susquehanna Greenway Partnership and helping to establish some meetings for 2023. And there's an agenda in your packet here as well. So thank you, Bryce.
So the first meeting is going to be Wednesday, February 15th. We have 3 other ones scheduled later throughout the year. I think, was it May, August, November?
Yes.
Yeah. So at least the first meeting, we're going to start with the elections. So I can formally replace Catherine. I've really been collaborating with Corey Ellison from Susquehanna Greenways right now to add some amendments, just to clean up some stuff on voting membership, making a directory for the voting members, and upgrading their web map for future use. So that's it on my end.
Great, thank you, Bryce. And I know several of you, especially at the county level, are involved in that committee. So look for the agenda and that meeting invite forthcoming. And then hopefully you can hit the February one. If not, then maybe some of the subsequent ones throughout the year. And we'll try and get some guest presentations along with our normal kind of business that the group entertains and works on, and the activity of the work groups and everything. So we were trying to line up Trish Meek, the statewide bike ped coordinator, for this meeting, but as far as availability and then key updates from her on a statewide level, that's going to fall to the May meeting. So it'd be good to hear from Trish, the statewide bike ped coordinator and former MPO staffer at Center County, on what's going on statewide and some of the activities and priorities the PennDOT has, and the pedal cycle advisory committee that she spearheads across the state. So several funding updates there are on the agenda for this meeting in February. So I think those will be timely and good for everyone. And then we'll share some of the other updates throughout. Any questions on the Active Transportation Committee? Okay, well then we're up to item L, member forum. I did see Jeff Eisman would want to share a couple of things here, and so we will give the floor to Jeff or anyone else who wants to provide updates for the membership.
Okay. Thank you, Steve. Can you guys hear me?
Yep, sounds good.
Okay, I'll keep this brief. As some of you probably know, PennDOT has a new secretary. The Shapiro administration was sworn in this Tuesday. It was announced last week that former state representative Mike Carroll, Democrat from Northeast PA, he represented parts of Luzerne, Lackawanna, and Monroe counties. He'll be the new PennDOT, the acting secretary. He'll be replacing Ms. Gramian. Representative Carroll was previously, as a number of you know, the Democratic Transportation Committee chair. So he has a lot of information on the different programs. So a lot of us think he's a good choice for that. So that's something else I wanted to update. Also, in terms of the legislature, even though we don't have anything going on in the House yet, which we won't until the speaker determines the rules and we decide who's in the majority, and so you can get committee chairs appointed. So the Senate has Senator Langerholt, some of you know him, who has he's from Cambria County. He's a Senate Republican transportation chair for this session. One thing that may be of interest to some of the participants on this call is in the redistricting, Senator Langerholt also takes in part of Center County in the redistricting, which Senator Dush also has part of Center County as well. It used to be Senator Corman's area. So wanted to note that. The Democratic chair in the Senate is Senator Marty Flynn from the Northeast, so they'll continue there. In the House, a couple names we've heard. On the Republican side, some of you know Kerry Benninghoff. He was the House Majority Leader from parts of Center and I want to say Mifflin counties. We've heard he's probably going to be the Republican Transportation Chair in the House. And on the Democrat side, we've heard Ed Nielsen from Philadelphia. For what it's worth, both of them were supportive of Act 89, which is our last transportation bill that raised the cap and increased our funding. So they're both advocates of transit. If those, but we'll find out more in the next. I'll say definitely the next month as we have some elections. There is an upcoming election in some of the areas served by SEDA COG. As many of you probably heard, Senator John Gordner, who was the Senate Majority Republican floor leader, resigned. He is taking a position as the one of the chief counsels with the Senate Republican caucus, so his seat is open. There will be an special election on Tuesday, January 31st for his seat. So if you're in his district, which includes Snyder, Northumberland, Montour, Columbia, and parts of Luzerne, you want to get out and vote January 31st for that seat. Polls will be open 7 a.m. to 8 p.m. So, and both parties have nominated candidates. One of the nominees is Representative Linda Culver. A lot of you know her. Her district covers parts of Northumberland and I want to say Snyder County. And if she wins, which is expected at this point, her seat will be open. From what we've heard, that seat will probably be filled in the May 16th primary coming up, but that's not a given yet. So, and then in Allegheny County, there are 3 seats that will probably determine it's expected that Democrats win all 3 of those districts. So you'll probably have a majority of Democrats. So probably we'll know something probably second, third week of February at the latest as to the status and basically getting committee chairs appointed once these special elections are sorted out. There is one big revenue bill that's been moving in the Senate Bill 35, which puts a cap on Pennsylvania's gas tax and potentially limits the revenue that PennDOT would have. Much of our revenue, we have the state, and of course, there's federal gas tax, but Senate Bill 35 would cap the current gas tax at about, I think that the amount is close to almost $3 in terms of the overall, what the price of the pump could be for fuel. So that passed the Senate. It was all Republicans and 1 Democrat. So right now, because of where the House is, that bill's not moving because we don't know who the committee chairs are. And potentially, a lot of people are going to say gas tax is going down, but for those of us who are involved in transportation funding, it's potentially less, not only state funding, but you need the state funding to pull down your federal match, and also with the other projects that require district matches, local matches, that could impact that. It doesn't impact transit per se at this point, but it's possible that with the new secretary, they could reprioritize what they fund. If you have reduced funding, that's kind of what you do, is you look at your projects and reprioritize. So I think those are the main things here. I did want to note that on our Transportation Alliance call, we had the Department of Industry, Office of Vocational Rehabilitation. Ryan Hyde did a presentation on our December 20th call and talked about what the OVR district offices are doing for providing transportation for people with disabilities. And I think Rabbit, I know they have a few contracts in a few counties, but they are subcontracting with transit providers to provide employment transportation in some areas. Pretty much the holdup, what we were told, is the rates. There has to be agreement between a local transit provider in order for that to happen. So, and I think in this MPO, there are some different OVR district offices that cover various parts of the MPO. So you may be seeing that in some counties where there's an agreement, in other counties there aren't. So, and I think that's it. I can take questions or great meeting so far. Thank you.
Thank you, Jeff. Any other member forum items or general discussion items? to be shared? Yeah, we'll continue to track those Senate bills as they work through the process. Jeff, thank you. And as Jeff said, there could be some lost revenue potentially on that wholesale tax and the automatic increase, in the sales tax and the revenues coming in the motor license fund. But one of the things that the Senate was looking at was reducing the level of support for the Pennsylvania State Police that comes out of the motor license fund. So over, I think, about a 5-year period, getting that down to 0. So that would kind of be the intended offset for the lost revenue with the automatic sales tax increases on the motor, on your prices you're paying at the pump.
And there is, I put a link in the chat too for folks to look at it.
Great. Anything else the members want to share that we've discussed here today, or anything else that you're working on? Okay, if there's nothing, we would look for a motion to adjourn and reconvene on March 17th.
Frank Hampton, so moved.
Thank you, Frank. Do we have a second?
I'll second that.
Thank you, Jack, for the second. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye. Aye.
Any opposed, same sign. Okay, hearing none, thanks everyone for joining us today, and hope you have a great weekend. Thanks.
Thank you. Good job,
you.
Jeff. That was an excellent report, bud.
Thanks. Thank you.
Be safe, everybody.
You too. I think should go to hit stop recording, right, Kristen? You got the last night.
Yeah.
That's the bottom. Kristen, I guess you did most recently. Or you already hit it?
I haven't. I just wanted to make sure
Okay.
it's hit stop record. Okay.